你们好, fellow Chinese language learners. Welcome to Chinese Patterns, where I teach you basic Mandarin Chinese grammar points and other things that are useful for learning Chinese. My name is Bai Lao Shi. If after watching this video you found it useful, please be sure to hit like and subscribe. And with that, let's get started. Today we will look at the surprisingly complicated number 1, aka E in Chinese. I bet some of you are thinking, what can be so complicated about the number 1? Well, it actually is, but don't confuse being complicated with being difficult. It's just that there are a few rules you need to know to express E, aka 1, correctly. Now, the main thing you need to know about E is that it changes tones in different situations. Right now is a good time to make sure you know the 4 tones, 5 if you count the neutral tone, in Chinese. Otherwise, this will not make a lot of sense. Anyway, I bet some of you didn't know that sometimes tones change in words, and this can be a little bit disconcerting because the tones are one aspect of Chinese that people often find difficult to master. Well, the good news is that the tone changes don't happen with many words. So don't worry about having to learn a long list of tone changes. It's just not like that. Okay, now let's find out which tones to say in which situations when saying E. When counting or saying E by itself, you should say the first tone, E, like that. So when you count, it will sound like this, E, R, san, which is probably the tone you first learned when you learned the word E anyway. So no surprises yet. Okay, here's where the changes begin. When E comes directly before a syllable or character that has a first, second, or third tone, E becomes fourth tone. So for example, preceding a first tone, E, zhi, mao. Zhi is first tone, so E becomes fourth tone, E. Preceding a second tone, E, tiao, kuzi, 1 pair of pants. Tiao is second tone, so E becomes fourth tone, E. Preceding a third tone, yi ji, together. Qi is third tone, so E becomes fourth tone. And now for a situation when E becomes second tone. When E comes directly before a syllable or character that is fourth tone, E becomes second tone. So for example, preceding a fourth tone, 一个人, 1 person. 个 is fourth tone, so E becomes second tone, 一. And with that is all the tone changes for E. One important thing to take note of is that when you see sentences actually written out on paper in pinyin, the previously mentioned tone changes are not always there. They sometimes make E always first tone, like how you probably first learned it anyways. But rest assured, you still should be pronouncing E based on the rules I just gave you. Now, let's look at an interesting case of when you don't have to say E, even though, in fact, there is one of something. For this, you will need to understand measure words. If you don't know what measure words are, please see Chinese Patterns Episode 2. So here is the rule. If there is no number in front of a measure word, the quantity is assumed to be 1. So again, there's a measure word, but there is no number in front of it. So we assume that it is one of something. Here are a couple of examples. 我有个同学. I have a classmate. 她是个好朋友. She is a good friend. See, there was no E there, but we assume that the quantity is 1. And now for the final part. Did you know that there is another number 1 other than E? It's true, and it is pretty commonly used. It is called yao. The good news is that it is optional. In other words, you can still say E instead of it. The other good news is that its use is clear-cut and narrowly defined. So when can we use yao? Yao can be used when reading aloud some sort of identification number. Notice the emphasis on reading aloud. The word is almost always used when speaking, not when reading and writing. Let's look at a situation I encountered before when I was in China. A restaurant is busy, so it has a waiting list. Each customer has a number. Let's say your number is 213. When it is your turn, the host might say, 213. Notice I didn't say 213. 213, I said each digit separately. 213. When using yao, you have to be saying each word separately. So when else might we use yao? By far the most common situation is giving telephone numbers. But it can also be used for serial numbers, lottery ticket numbers, you name it. It is pretty flexible. It just has to be a number that's used to identify something. And with that, we are finished. I hope this episode, which taught you how to use the number 1 in Chinese, is clear to you now if it wasn't before. If you liked this video and or found it useful, please be sure to press the like button and hit subscribe. Thank you. 谢谢. And please come again. Until next time, 下次再见.